So we are inside the WASP 10 tool from 2021, which is part from the complete beginner path on TryHackMe. Injection flaws are very common in applications today. These flaws occur because the application interrupts user-controlled input as commands or parameters. This is it basically. That's it here. These flaws occur because the application interrupts user-controlled input as command or parameters. This is it. This is the definition. Interrupts user control input as commands or parameters. Injection attacks depend on what technologies are used and how these technologies interpret the input. Some common examples include a SQL injection, command injection. There are many other injections, but these are the most common ones. This occurs when user control input is passed to SQL queries. As a result, an attacker can pass in SQL queries to manipulate the outcome of such queries. This could potentially allow the attacker to access, modify and delete information in a database when this input is passed into database queries. This would mean an attacker could steal sensitive information such as personal details and credentials. Command injection, this occurs when user input is passed to system commands, right? As a result, an attacker can execute arbitrary system commands on application servers, potentially allowing them to access user systems. Let's jump over here into SQL injection prevention on a WASP cheat sheet. We see here anatomy of a typical SQL injection vulnerability. Here is code written in Java. So we have a string, right? A query string. We have a query of type string, right? We see here the SQL statement. And here we see the added parameter. Right? And this is a vulnerability. Here we select the account balance from user data where the username is from the requested parameter customer name. So whatever we enter in customer name, this string query will take that input and add it over here and show the result. This is the connection to that statement, then execute the query, right? Boom, this is the vulnerability. Now we have the primary defenses. Prepare statements, right? Properly constructed store procedures. Allow list input validation. As strongly discourage escaping all user supplied input. And here we can see a prepare statement. This should really be validated too. Let's see. I mean, yes, of course. This is basically the request that we saw previously put into a variable of type string, right? Cast name. Then perform the input validation to detect attacks. We have the same query. And then we can see here the prepare statement. The prepare statement object takes the query with the input from custom name, the first input, and executes the query. But here it's actually the validation happened. So this will prevent the SQL injection from happening. We can see over here an example of a SQL injection that here will work. But in the second one will not work. This one will fail if the provided argument is not a string. If we check over here in Oracle Docs, for instance, for set string, we have the int parameter index and then string x, right? Sets the design parameter to the given Java string value. The driver converts these to a SQL varchar or long varchar value, depending on the argument size relative to the driver's limit on varchar values, when it sends it to the database, right? And here we see parameters. Parameter index basically is the first one, the second one, right? And the x is the parameter value. And then if not, if that is not a valid parameter, throws a SQL exception. If parameter index does not correspond to a parameter marker in the SQL statement, if a database access error occurs or this method is called on a closed parameter statement. Okay. The main defense for preventing injection attacks is ensuring that user control input is not interpreted as queries or commands. There are different ways of doing this. Using an allow list, when input is sent to the server, this input is compared to a list of safe inputs or characters. If the input is marked as safe, then it is processed. Otherwise, it is rejected and the application throws an error. Stripping input. If the input contains dangerous characters, these are removed before processing. Dangerous characters or input is classified as any input that can change how the underlying data is processed. Instead of manually constructing allow lists or stripping input, various libraries exist that can perform these actions for you. Parameterized statements. Answer the questions below. I've understood injection attacks. Yes.